in working with our schools, we've talked with between 20 and 30 different districts. We've had discussions about their AI policies. And one of the things that everybody's asking about is student privacy. And the reality is, if you put it into an AI, there is no privacy. So just for an example of something relatively innocent, if you put in your football team's scores and how many each player scored from last year, well, another school could be doing something with AI. If they use the same AI, like if you're both using Chat GPT, and they're saying, how is our school going to compare with Southeastern and Northwestern and Jim Davis local? And if you type that in, well, the AI already knows how your kids did because you typed it in. So in the report for an opposing school, it might bring up data on your players because, again, there is no privacy. There is no way to tell AI, only share this information with me. So anything you put in there can potentially be brought up by somebody else doing their own AI search. So this is really scary. And certainly, if it's non-directory information, it's going to be in violation of Ohio and federal laws, FERPA and so forth. So really something to think about. Anything you put into AI, you've got to think it's like I'm posting it on Facebook. It might not be real easy to find, but it's in there. And if somebody looks, anything you put in, somebody else can get out as long as they're in the same AI system.
Wow. Okay. Scary and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, scary and awesome at the same time. Again, when in these districts that we're working with so far, two big issues have been coming up. One is, and number one, because that's one where there's most likely to be, stuff that gets on the front page of the paper or somebody's Facebook page, is going to be when there's a violation of student privacy, where something gets published about an individual student that shouldn't have been. So that's the privacy issue. And the other whole issue is academics. There's a number of websites out there right now. A number of them where students can go paste in their essay and say, make it better. They can even have the AI generated itself. We're getting some indication if the AI does the entire writing assignment, many teachers can detect it. But if the student does the writing assignment first, even if they do a really bad job on that writing assignment, and then they paste that, what they themselves wrote, they paste it into the AI, it comes out much, much better. And we know students are doing this. They're doing it with their college applications, and probably some of your high school and even middle school students have already. This only became available about 8-10 months ago. And probably some of your students were already doing this by the end of the 22-23 school year. And how do we handle it? Honestly, it is, if the student starts by writing the essay themselves, it is almost impossible to see the difference. I've been participated in a couple of demonstrations on this, and we were, we had about a 50-50 chance of guessing whether AI did it or whether a person did it. That's just pure chance. We were not able to tell.
Well, that's my concern too. And authenticity, continue to say that, but when it first came out, I talked to Brent about it, and he was like, oh, we're not allowed to use
So this is your son. He's in high school.
Yeah, yes, high school. Yeah. So he's going to be a senior, but he was kind of scared. He's like, oh, we're not supposed to use it. And granted, he's a kid that doesn't want to mess up, doesn't want to get in trouble, kind of thing. But basically, I was trying to tell him things. He's also a know-it-all. I was trying to tell him things, and he said, oh no, turn it in, we'll catch everything. It'll know. Turn it in, we'll know. Turn it in. And so I don't know if they've drilled it into them. I don't know if they have a policy. We could reach out to them and ask them. But basically, he is convinced in some way, which I'm not saying that's
Well,
100% of the
I
student
mean, first,
body in his
yeah,
district,
yeah. I mean,
but
first off, teachers are probably, go ahead.
but he's convinced he'll get caught if he does
Yeah.
anything. First of all, he's not going to do that. But still there's some kids that are just like, maybe I could get away with it. And granted, okay, so what I did was with my article, and I told Judy and Debbie that I did this, my little snippet, I typed it, I had it already typed in, and I put it into Chat GPT, and I said, make this better, make it more professional. I think I said, I'd have to look back at the Chat GP thing.
Yeah.
But when I said, I thought it was funny, but what the first thing Judy said was, that doesn't sound like you. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you know your students well enough, I mean, if you're in a small district like my son goes to, then the teacher might be able to tell. I mean, the graduating class of 25 kids. But if you're at a bigger school that's graduating class of 100 plus or 200, maybe you don't know that.
Well, let's say at a larger school, when your English comp class or whatever your senior level class is, and you've got 2, 3, 4 sections of it, not just one section. It's hard to, I mean, and I believe it or not, that was something I did for a while, was taught composition and writing. I got, part of my background is I've got a degree in journalism. And, if you just had a small group of kids, it was really easy. But when you started dealing with multiple classes, you had 2, 3 sections, at least I found it really hard to remember and keep track of what is this student's style. I mean, you could do it, but it was hard. And that's just when students were doing 100%, no AI at all. So when you put that AI in there, I mean, so here's the trick. And honestly, and a lot of you are going to disagree with me, but I think we have to teach the tricks, because your more perceptive students, your students that are more on top of things, they already know them and they're already doing them. Whether they should or not, the whole ethical issue, that is worth talking about. It really is. But the reality is, you know what? Most of us go a little bit over 55 miles an hour sometimes. We might not go 75 miles an hour very often, but we go 55, 58, 64 pretty often. And I think that's the way it's going to be with students on the AI. Even students that are committed or are afraid to use the AI, they're going to start getting in there and tweaking stuff around a little bit with it. So back what I mentioned, the trick. All right. And this is something every single teacher needs to know. If you're doing a writing assignment this fall, here's the trick. Students, write your assignment yourself first, and then send it to the AI and tell it to make it better. Because some of the kids already are doing that.
Well,
we need
okay.
So
yeah, I hear you on that. So, okay. So okay. I think there's so many points from what you just said. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. There are.
But basically, okay. Yes. I think that's the way it's always been with technology, that teachers need to understand the tricks and use the tricks in their classroom to enhance and make their curriculum a little more rigorous. Because I'll tell you what, when I had it generate something from scratch and I just put the details in that I wanted it to put in there, and it was just a basic email. And when the email didn't sound like me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so impersonal, I kept tweaking Chat GPT until it sounded like me, but it never did. And I'm going to work at it. I can take what it gave me. Like Judy says, all I wanted to do is give me a start, and then I want to generate it from there. I think there's a lot of students who wouldn't take that start, even if the teacher told them, start from here, put it in here, now revise it and make it sound like. That's a lot more work than just writing it. It's almost like the whole thing my mom used to say, you're working harder to avoid work than doing the work. So if you just did the original work anyways, then I think you would come out, with less work involved. So yeah, because I got discouraged when I was like, now I got to make this, because this lady has already interacted with me 3 hours face-to-face time, probably 6 hours via emails, whatever, and now I'm going to send her this email that doesn't sound anything like me, but I liked a lot about the email, but it was so much work to revise it to make it sound like it was passable as me, kind of thing. So I think there's a lot there. I don't think anyone's going to go nuts enough that if they can hide it and go 75 miles per hour and give something to the teacher and the teacher doesn't catch it, then that is an issue. But I think if we use this as a tool to enhance our learning, I think that could be really challenging in some respects. But then how do the teachers grade that? What's the criteria for grading that? Because if they've already put something in there, we're going to have to look at what they put in the ChatGPT, what ChatGPT gave to them. And then there's going to be so many revisions. And if you have, at one point when I was teaching English language arts with research papers, I had 190 kids that I was grading research papers with. That is 3 revisions or 3 portions of text that you have to compare to each other to see where the students have grown. And that's that growth measure is, and that's a low amount of kids. So you're thinking like 600 revisions that you have to compare and grade criteria on that to see if the students have grown. So I can.
Go ahead.
Interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. So a couple of things on your point. So you went back to your son and he's saying, oh no, Turnitin.com or one of the other plagiarism checkers will check it. So if you follow the media, and especially if you follow the announcements by these plagiarism checkers, Turnitin.com is huge. The one that Google offers to schools is used by many, many districts. And Microsoft has a version of a plagiarism checker that's out there. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of those plagiarism checkers. And the listservs and the announcements that I'm seeing, every single one of them says, we now catch AI. So, the teachers and the kids are probably being told, oh no, whatever plagiarism checker we happen to be using, whether it's Turnitin.com or Google's or Microsoft Words or anybody else's, they're claiming they can catch it, and they're getting better from what we're seeing. But the research that we have available right now shows that a student that follows the suggestions I just gave you, where the student does the first draft, the plagiarism checkers, again, emerging research, this is changing a lot. And I always try and differentiate between Roger's opinion and what we're seeing of research. But the initial research is showing if a kid does what you did, Tanya, if they take the time to go in and tweak it, the plagiarism checkers won't catch it.
Well, and I'm going to be naive right now. I don't know if naive is the right word, but when so through Canvas, Turnitin at BGSU is automatically attached to it. And so when I had my dissertation, which was 1,000% mine, of course it was, 5 years ago that I turned it in. So technology was different then, but it flagged me like enough times that I could have been failed. The Turnitin did, because I kept saying a phrase that is used a lot in the academia world. And so I don't have much faith in Turnitin. So Turnitin thought I plagiarized my dissertation. Yeah. How is it going to pick up on something that is an AI that is generating all these, very smart combinations and phrasing of your wording? Because all I kept saying was educational technology or technology integration. I mean, that's a common phrase, but if AI already knows all these things, isn't it like the fight of the AIs? Like,
no, I'm glad you brought that up. And boy, we should use more graphics in these vlogs, because this would be a perfect one, the fight of the AIs. So one of the things, and again, this is emerging. Some of the stuff we're talking about has not happened yet, or it's just starting to happen. But so one way to make the plagiarism checkers, the Turnitin.coms of the world, and again, that's just one, not necessarily recommending that particular product, but we'll just use that as the example, understanding that the other checkers out there have very similar characteristics. All right, so let's say Turnitin.com has a relationship with ChatGPT. And let's say as a student, I use ChatGPT. So now Turnitin.com, when it's checking for plagiarism, it looks at its database and says, hey, did anybody submit this report? Or did ChatGPT generate a report? And I'll just grab a topic,
Oh, gotcha.
Ohio Native Americans. And so it looks and say, hey, anybody done any searches on Ohio Native Americans lately? Oh, and so it can match up
Right.
what it itself generated with the Turnitin.com. And
Yeah.
so some of the emerging research it's battle of AIs. Can I find an AI that Turnitin.com doesn't use? I mean, this thing gets real complex real quick. And the bottom line is a savvy student can get around it. Now, I'm going to go back, years ago, when, like many of you watching this, many of you that are teachers currently, you've graduated from college probably on average between 5 and 20 years ago. Well, regardless of when you graduated from college, you could hire somebody to write your term papers. That's been going on for 100 years. And, if the professor didn't know you very well, you could hire your entire term paper and they'd never catch on. So this gets to the whole ethical access of it. But can Turnitin catch it? Yeah. If you know the tricks, probably not. And so this is like advanced when we're, well, let's say if I find out I'm getting caught a lot and I'm using ChatGPT, well, I'm going to go use one of the other AIs then to do my research writing that's not linked with the plagiarism checker that my teacher's using. I mean, a savvy kid, there's a lot of tricks out there. So the bottom line is, how are we going to fairly evaluate kids? I think we teach them the tools that are there. And again, that's a tough call to say, all right, I'm going to let students have somebody else, in this case, an electronic artificial intelligence, somebody else. I'm going to let students have somebody else write their compositions, and I'm going to grade them based on how good a job they do selecting that ghostwriter. I mean, it's a scary world, and one that we're going to have lots more discussions with. Step one is making sure your teachers know this. And this probably should be at the beginning of this video, but if you are teaching writing, or if you're getting writing assignments to your students, you have got to know how students are already using artificial intelligence to make you think they're submitting when really it's the artificial intelligence that have written the assignments. Lots more to learn on this.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a good spot to have a cliffhanger into what we're going to go into next. I think we have to continue on with AI or things related to AI. I know most of our videos have been scary, but basically, I think we will continue to bring in our perspective and our experiences with teachers and administrators to continue this discussion about where their concern is, and then lead into for possibly the perspective of positive uses of it, Canva or Question Well, and all those things that we've experienced with the connections to AI and all the questions that we're getting from teachers, because I think knowledge is power and we need to know more about it. All the things that we've talked about will be on the link on your screen right now. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns or anything that you want to ask us about, you can use the contact information at the end of this video. So we appreciate you join us in this week's episode, and join us next week where we'll continue our talk about AI, and maybe we'll lean more towards the less scary perspective of using the AI interfaces. Go ahead.
Before you close off, I hope to be able to share a real life experience with AI in a class I am taking. I did let the instructor know that I was using AI and actually sent to him some of the answers I was getting from the questions in our little study guide, just to make you aware it is a church membership class, and the pastor did respond right away when I sent him. He's the instructor, but tonight's the first class since I started letting AI help me a bit, and I mean it really was a help, and I'll explain the next time what actually happened and how others reacted, if they even knew about AI. These are just regular, none of the rest of them. Well, the one is a paraprofessional in a school, but just do they even know what's out there as parents or grandparents about AI. So it could be interesting tonight.
I can't wait to hear about that, because that that's got my brain churning about that perspective of it. There's an entire world that doesn't even know about it. We're just focusing on the educational world. Of course, yours is education, but not the focus of our services. But I'm curious of how that's going to pan out and what response.
Yeah, I even created a quiz with Question Well, which is an AI tool, and sent it to Pastor, and he hasn't taken the quiz yet. So that will be interesting to see what he thought of the questions it created. So
perfect. I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, we'll see that. We'll hopefully see that maybe next week and touch on that. And that'll be a fun, more uplifting portion of this artificial intelligence.
I hope so.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.